Hey folks, welcome back to HeartGold vs. Crystal. We are here at the third member of the Elite Four, Bruno. He is primarily a fighting type user, and he is the only Elite Four member from the first generation to retain his status as an Elite Four member in this generation, which is interesting. Anyway, as I said, he is a fighting type user, and his lead Pokemon is a Hitmontop introduced in the second generation as one of the most annoying Pokemon to get. It evolves from this kind of base evolution. By the way, it likes to use Dig, use Earthquake. It evolves from the base evolution baby Pokemon Tyrogue, which can evolve into Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, or Hitmontop depending on its attack and defense stats. And to get Hitmontop, it needs to have equal attack and defense stats at level 20, and it will evolve then. Or you can prevent this evolution and keep trying, but it's still really annoying because that means you have to very carefully balance and try to manipulate EVs or IVs or various other things. Because if it isn't exactly perfect, you'll get either a Chan or a Lee instead. Speaking of either a Chan or a Lee, Hitmonchan is kind of a jerk. As you can see, it has Ice Punch, which is super effective against Sandra, and I was hoping I'd get lucky and thaw out, or I thought I might feint that turn or something. But yeah, the thing about Hitmonchan, much like when we were fighting Pokemon in Chuck's gym, is that because it has the various elemental punches, it can hit super effectively on a variety of Pokemon types. Because it has Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, and Ice Punch generally. And I assume it does here. And Ice Punch, of course, is the most annoying because it can freeze you, and that's not fun. Also because it's super effective against this ground type. Sandra apparently, based on that prior research, can survive 2 hits if I'm lucky. So that does allow me to whittle things down, which is nice. Because my only other alternatives are Bree with Extrasensory or Frida with Confusion, and Frida, of course, is unevolved and would die to Fire Punch, and then Bree would probably die to both Ice Punch and Thunder Punch, and good lord, screw you, Hitmonchan, you're just the worst person in the world. I hate you so much. Yeah. So basically, all my options for taking care of Hitmonchan are, like, covered by his various punching capabilities. And if you're using a pure Psychic type, then, I mean, you're fine. But if you're using most mixtures, it'll be an issue. Like Natu would fall to Thunder Punch or Ice Punch. Probably Girafarig wouldn't have too fun of a time. It's a tough proposition. Now, on the plus side, Hitmonchan is more defensively based compared to its counterparts. Hitmonlee, as you'll see in a second, is more attack-based. Hitmonchan's defense-based, which means that its attacks won't hit quite as hard as you might be worried that they might. But again, since much of my team is fragile, it's dangerous. Honestly, I'm amazed Webster did that well against the Fire Punch, but it's not like I'm going to get another hit in on him, from Webster anyway, except for priority moves. So instead, taking the opportunity to heal somebody else, while Hitmonchan takes care of Webster. I did get lucky with that poison there. In case I do need to stall him out through various other methods, I do have the opportunity. But having revived Sandra, I now have the capability to use a move to do damage to him, basically. And of course he has the full restore, which puts all of my previous effort to waste. So that's great. That's just freaking dandy. Isn't that wonderful? I think that's wonderful. But luckily Hitmonchan is actually probably the most annoying on his team, at least for me. Other Pokemon are technically more straight-up dangerous, but this guy gave me the most issue just because of his type coverage. Anyway, nice lucky business there. And using Shadow Claw, of course, to preserve Earthquake BP, which I will need. Next up is Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee, attack-based, will do more straight-up damage, but does not have elemental type coverage capabilities. And that means you can more safely send out whatever mixed psychic type that you might have, such as Frida. Except he has Blaze Kick, which I didn't expect. Blaze Kick, of course, is a kicking-based move, so it's thematically appropriate. And it's a fire-type move, which is super effective, and that is just straight-up unfortunate. It's like the one elemental kick I can think of. So that's just great. That's fun. That's fantastic. And I don't think Frida being evolved would have actually alleviated that issue very much. Anyway, you can see he attempted to use Swagger and succeeded on this turn. Swagger is an interesting move. It sharply raises the opponent's attack stat, as in 2 stages, essentially doubling it, and also confuses them. So depending on your luck, it can actually be a very good asset to you if it is used on you. So in the case of Klaus here, since he is primarily physically attack-based, that Swagger is really, really useful if I want to do a bunch of damage to the opponent. And if I happen to be holding whatever the confusion curing berry is, I think it's the bitter berry or something, then that's great, that's fantastic, that's wonderful, that puts me in an excellent, excellent situation. So Klaus actually manages to take care of Hitmonlee relatively well. But then in comes Machamp. And Machamp, oh, he's a buff guy. He's a very buff guy. And he has this very, very mean ability. He has the ability No Guard, which makes all moves on the battlefield hit. Always. So, if he wanted to, he could use Dynamic Punch. I don't think he has that on his moveset. And he would always hit, and that's dangerous. But basically that means you can't double team him, you can't sand attack him, you can't do whatever. But on the flip side, if you have a very inaccurate move, you can use it against him. So if you have some sort of high-risk psychic type move, I can't think of one, but if you have a low accuracy move that you like to bust out, feel free. Other than that, he is obscenely high physical attack, and I'm sure it's not obscenely high by some of your people's standards, but it's dangerous nonetheless. It should not be underestimated. But overall, he's just more predictable than a lot of the other Pokemon that he's had here. Hitmonlee took me for a trip, Hitmonchan took me for a trip. Machamp, fairly predictable. And then finally, Onix. Onix is kind of the odd one out here, because it's a rock-ground type, not actually a fighting type. And at least it's better than in Generation 1. In Generation 1 he had 2 Onix, one of which was replacing Hitmontop, basically. And that made him kind of half rock, half fighting, with a slight imbalance, but still. Here, it's kind of a trip because you can't use the same strategy that you've been using this whole time. Psychic types won't work against him, flying types won't work against him. But you should have Surf on your team somewhere, and Surf will do quadruple damage to him, so that's great. Or just use any kind of special move and it'll work out just fine, like it is here. I mean, sure, he has Sandstorm, and if he brings in Sandstorm early on and then you KO him quickly, then it could be a hamper to you while you're dealing with his other Pokemon. But Onix itself shouldn't be very dangerous. High physical defense, absolutely. But you should know how to deal with these things by now. You deal with them like you would a Geodude or a Graveler, or like anything. We've seen these since the first generation. If you haven't been playing very long, you should still understand the basic concepts of quadruple type effectiveness. Now, of course, I'm not taking my own advice. I'm whittling him down with Everett. I could revive Klaus and probably surf him to oblivion fairly easily, but that's just not what I'm doing. I'm just doing it the slow and tedious and unnecessarily boring way. Why? I haven't the foggiest. But yeah, Sandstorm actually... The one thing about Sandstorm that might put a hamper on my previous ideas, but really shouldn't. Sandstorm, as of Generation 4, increases, I believe, the special defense of rock types by a certain amount. And so any special type moves that you're using against Onix won't do as much damage, but they're still your best option. Onix has a ridiculously high physical defense stat, so special's still better. But that could slow you down a little bit, I suppose. Anyway, I believe this is the finale for Onix. Is this the end? Yes, it is, and that takes care of Bruno in HeartGold version. So, check out the Crystal version after this commercial break. Alrighty, Crystal version, let's see what's different. Honestly, not a whole lot. His team, like with the previous battles, is more or less the same. His Hitmontop actually uses the same strategy as it does in HeartGold, more or less. But instead, because I have Frida on my side, and thus a fully evolved Psychic type, that means that I can actually bring in a fully evolved Psychic type to do Psychic type damage for fun and profit. If I had wanted to, I could have led with Sandra, used Earthquake on this Hitmontop using Dig, as I did in previous instances in HeartGold. But, hey, why the hell not? Let's use the patented Frida whittling strategy. Why? Because I feel like it. Alright. But yeah, I guess the thing about Hitmontop is that it is a jack of two trades, not even all trades, just two of them. And so it isn't as good at anything as Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee, and that is usually kind of a killer for Pokemon. You rarely want Pokemon who are just okay at everything. Anyway, that Confusion did a lot more damage than I expected. Probably didn't even need to do the whittling tactic. Anyway, bringing in Hitmonchan, just as before, and I think that just as before, Hitmonchan will dish out the elemental punches. Like so. But here, Frida's boss. So, that was a critical, guys. That was a critical. Not a whole lot of damage. And you know why? It's because, in this generation, the elemental punches are special moves, whereas Hitmonchan, although it is defensively based, relies primarily on its physical attack stat. And that means that all these weak fire, ice, thunder punches aren't using the right stat, basically, and they're not going to do as much damage to your Pokemon because they're not using the right stat. Anyway, Frida was burned there, and if I actually cared, that might be an issue. Burn, as I've mentioned, lowers your physical attack stat. It cuts it, but since Frida is a special attacker, I don't care as much. It could come to bite me back in the butt. Like I'll live by a hair and then the burn will kill me or something, but I'm not too concerned from an offensive front, and since I do have a good number of revives, that's not too much of an issue. Anyway, bringing out Machamp this time rather than Hitmonlee. Who are we going to bring in against this Machamp? Webster. Why not? Now, just kind of a side note, but I frickin' love Machamp's sprite in this generation. Something about the shading and the detail on it makes it look very, very nice. In a completely heterosexual way, of course. Anyway, yeah, not a great matchup for Webster. Kind of one of Machamp's killing moves here is Rock Slide, which is meant to take care of any flying types that you're trying to use here. Which could definitely happen if you're trying to, like, bring in Ho-Oh against these guys as kind of a screw this button. Rock Slide will make things more difficult for you. Anyway, set up the Leech Seed early, because hopefully that Leech Seed should counteract any damage that I take from the Burn. Although Burn will take effect first, so in a pinch it would kill me before I have a chance to heal, but it's still nice in the long run. And then, more whittling. I'm getting very nice luck with the accuracy on these whittling moves. If I were not as lucky, I could spend several turns trying to set up that Leech Seed or that Poison, and then I would waste several healing items trying to get back up to a higher level, or higher amount of health, and it's just glad things that went my way. Anyway, now that those are set up, we can safely heal free to back up, get rid of that Burn, hopefully, maybe, while that Machamp slowly dies. Machamp, I think, is like meant to be the killer of his team, as much as I had with the Hitmonchan and HeartGold. Machamp is clearly the most, like, stat-wise dangerous of the group, since he does have the muscles to back up his capabilities. And we're getting close to beating him. Getting pretty close. One more turn, looks like. This, of course, is the Frida whittling tactic. I'm sure you've gotten used to it by now. Just go into kind of a zen state whenever it happens. It'll all be alright. Oh look, a max potion. Why did I not see that coming? I always forget. But at least in this case, it is a max potion rather than a full restore, so the poison is still going, and I am whittling him at a faster rate. But looky there, Confusion, actually a pretty darn good move against these guys. I'm honestly surprised that a move with such low base power as Confusion at this point in the game is doing such a good job. Anyway, I would also like to complain that Rock Slide has not missed so far, despite Machamp not having no guard in this generation because there are no abilities. I remember that, actually, when I was facing Machamp in my Hop-Hip Only run several years ago. Rock Slide just never fucking missed. It's never happened, even though it misses all the time when I try to use it. A little ridiculous, but that's just because the computer hates me, and that's a well-established fact by now. Anyway, Onix time. Who are we gonna send in against Onix? Well, let's try what was not tried before. Let's bring in Klaus for that quadruple effective Surf. Now, Klaus, of course, not great special attack, but I was saying, hey, you should use like special moves anyway, because even a Klaus with his low special attack is able to do this much damage. Look at this amount of damage. All the damage. All the damage. Yes, it was stabbed. Yes, it's high base power, but it is Klaus. Not to belittle Klaus at all. So really, guys, just take my advice. I know what I'm talking about for once. And then, finally, Hitmonlee. I don't know how he can balance like that, incidentally. And are we actually going to get through a fight without using the amazing Everett? Yes, we are. I think so. Anyway, here's the other side of Swagger. I was talking about how it was to my advantage in HeartGold. Here it isn't, because it raises my physical attack stat Frida as a special attacker. So, it doesn't help me at all. It just gives me confusion, and that's, I think, what it's mainly supposed to be used for. On the other hand, I am very patient. I suppose Swagger and Burn are kind of these weird polar opposites in that regard. One is something that benefits physical attackers, and the other is one that harms physical attackers, and vice versa for special attackers. But anyway, with all due luck, hopefully, This will be the end of that Hitmonlee. No, of course not. That would be too convenient. And that of course means that Frida is in danger range, which means we need to use another healing item and try the process all over again. And are we good to go? Oh my god, that was a critical. Goodness gracious, right when I don't care. There we go. Confusion, taken out Hitmonlee. A lot of these are 2-hit KOs, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Anyway, that takes care of Bruno, and I will see you guys next time for the final member of the Elite Four.